Hey guys, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I am Rachel.
And I'm Melissa, and we are sisters. And hello, you guys.
And hello. I don't know why we always say and. I always want to say
know.
like, and welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. And
Yes.
we say and hello.
Yes.
I don't
That's
know
one of
why
those
we do that.
unnecessary words that we say that is not necessary. And
Necessary. Can we talk about that once? Unnecessary words?
Yeah, because I always tell people I'll be right back. Like I'm getting out of the car to run in the store. I'm like, I'll be
Right.
right back. Yeah.
That's
like
what
you
it
think
was.
I'm not coming back. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And we've added and to the list.
Exactly. And I definitely say and a lot. And so I start a lot of sentences with so. So I had this thing. So
Yeah.
I was thinking
like
about
you
this.
need it to get the feeling behind what you're about to say. Because if you just say it, because I do the same thing, it doesn't have the same emphasis if you don't say so.
Here we are again with that one. Did any of you look it up? Because we totally did. It was from the movie Airplane, I think is what it's called. Is that what it was
I don't
called?
remember now.
Anyways.
Now I forget again.
Yeah, I think Mike Meyer was in it. You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah. Was it Airplane? I don't think so.
Really, we're talking about the same stupid thing again.
And we still don't know, but we're talking about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's move on before people
over
click.
Christmas break. I know this is our second time back, but still.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, my brain left too. Today we're talking about when we need to be right. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you will soon. So we're talking about when you just in an argument or a conflict and you just need to be right. We just need to be right. Like, I think this is a very human nature thing. Some people out there, I think, are more easy, like to just roll over and be like, I could be wrong, like naturally. But I know for me, I have had to work to be there because my flesh says, well, I'm right, obviously. And that's like our pride.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that today, when we need to be right. And is it biblical? What does the Bible say about it?
Rachel's head bobbing around if you're not watching.
I don't know why. It's like there's so many things to say about this topic.
I was going to say, I think she has some feelings about what's about to come.
Okay. So I was actually like a fairly easygoing human until I was an adult. Like I didn't have a lot of conflict with my parents or my siblings or friends until I was like an adult. And then it was like this whole other version of me came out.
What was adult age for you? Like what age are you talking?
When I went to college, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when I went to college and then like my entire 20s and into my 30s. So a good long period. It was very difficult. Long period. So lucky for all of those around me. She's pointing at herself if they're not on YouTube. And I just honestly believed with everything in me that if I felt I was right, I could fight tooth and nail to be right because I feel I'm right. So I must be right. And I just need to get those around me to see that I'm right.
Get on board with you.
Get on board with me. So, I mean, we could be talking about a memory. So Melissa and I could be sharing a memory. And I'll be like, no, it was this day. And like two other people could be like, well, no, it was this day. And I'm like, they're wrong.
Can I share a conversation about a memory that
you recent one?
You were right. No.
That's good.
So my wedding dress.
Well, I was like, I have changed.
My wedding dress had a bow on the back. And Rachel insisted either that it didn't have a bow or that the bow was on the butt. And I was like, well, no, it's my wedding dress. Like I picked it out. I wore it. I have pictures.
And this was like after they gotten married.
Yeah. After we gotten married, we'd been married a couple years. And do you remember which one you insisted it was?
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah. But the point was that she was insistent that the bow
I was right.
was in a location that I knew it wasn't because it was my dress.
Well, and what an idiot I was, because hello, we just had to look at pictures.
There was lots of my wedding album.
Yeah. So I did those things all the time.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when I was proven wrong, I was not quick to be like, oh, I guess I was wrong. Like I am now. I do that now all the time. Oh, I guess I was wrong. In fact, now God's changed me so much. I'm more like, I could be wrong, like right off the bat. Cause I'm like, I don't know. How's my memory? How can I know my memory is right? Like my memory
a regular conversation between Rachel and I these days is one of us will say something with a lot of authority and the other one will be like, really? Are you sure? Oh yeah, no, probably not. I'm probably wrong.
Probably wrong. Me too. Cause I don't know.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Those are our back and forth. We both say that to each other regularly.
Yeah. But for so many years, I mean, I can't even fathom how awful it was to be in a conversation with me because you couldn't walk away. No one walked away a winner
Mm-hmm.
because when someone needs to be right, nobody wins.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I prove that I'm right, like, do I really feel better? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I feel like some sense of pride, like, see, I was right.
Yeah.
But like the relationship didn't win.
Right.
And so then does anybody feel better when the
Mm-hmm.
relationship clearly hasn't won?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and
so,
oh, go ahead. Keep going.
well, and when I would insist I was right and then I would prove that I was right, people would be like, okay, you were right.
Mm-hmm.
But like everyone feels deflated
Mm-hmm.
because of how I handled the conversation.
Because it was a battle getting there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I actually, it is, I'm not, I don't necessarily need to be right. It's actually way easier for me when I'm the one in the wrong because then I can just deal with it. I don't have to worry about how the other person's going to handle it. I can try to make things better. But when you are the person who doesn't need to be right, but you're in a relationship with someone who does need to be right, what would happen with me with Rachel is that I would start to feel like I had to fight to be right because otherwise I felt like I was always just being walked over.
Right.
And so it put me I ended up starting to be someone I actually wasn't in my relationship with her. And so yeah, when she says nobody's winning, it's even bigger than that because
Right.
it can create something in the other person that doesn't even actually normally exist with anyone else. But and so yeah, that was not those weren't our best days
No,
together.
those weren't my best days. And I have been in relationships with people where they have to be right. And it does feel like I can't win here, but not like
Yeah,
I'm trying to win the argument. Like,
a
no
defeat.
defeat, like no one is
Mm-hmm.
winning here.
Mm-hmm.
This is not healthy at all. And
Yep.
so I will give you a couple of tips if you're in a relationship with someone who needs to be right all the time. That will come at some point in this podcast. But
Mm-hmm.
first, I want to speak to those of you who maybe in your marriage or at work, if you're just a person who just walks around and regularly can't see where you would be wrong or could
Mm-hmm.
be wrong, you probably fit in the category of arrogant and prideful.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are arrogant and we're prideful, we just can't imagine how we could be wrong.
Yeah.
And that is where I spent a huge portion of my adult
Mm-hmm.
years.
I want to pause for
Now,
a second
yeah.
before Rachel keeps going because those are hard words to hear. If you're listening and you're like, and you hear arrogant or prideful, and if you get like a gut reaction to that, like your spirit feels like it's been pricked, or your stomach feels like it just turned in
Or a
knots,
little angry.
yeah, or you're mad, you're like, don't talk to me like that kind of reaction. That means you really need to listen because that means that you're the one that we're talking to today, and it is not a judgment, it is out of love. Obviously Rachel's being very vulnerable about where she's been with this, and she'll share freedom that has come from not having to
Oh,
be right all the more.
absolutely.
I mean, our relationship is different simply because she doesn't have to be right all the time, and like
Right.
I said, we regularly say to each other, oh yeah, I'm probably wrong. Like both of us say that to each other now, and it makes us laugh, and then we move on, and it doesn't actually
And
affect
then
our
we
life
find the answer and then we laugh
because
together because we were
we're
usually both
usually both
wrong.
wrong. Yes, high five.
Air high five.
So anyways,
Yeah.
I do want to say with all the love in the world that I understand that feeling of
Mhm.
defensiveness or anger or hurt that you might be feeling. But if you really want to be the best version of yourself, which I think we all really do
If we
ultimately,
want to be the most like Jesus.
mhm, you're going to want to take this and pray about it. And even if you have to come back and listen later because you can't handle it right now, get
Yeah.
yourself in a space where you are open because
Yeah.
it really does change relationships one way or the other when somebody always has to be right. So, okay, Rachel,
Yeah.
carry on.
Well, and I didn't say it with much love because I'm like, I'm preaching to the people who need to hear it just like me.
Yeah.
But Melissa, that was great of you to come back and like put some love over it because I'm like, listen, if this is you, you're arrogant and you're prideful, but
Hmm.
also like I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
But
Mm-mm.
like this is,
This is
I
one of
mean,
those times she is right.
this is one of those times I could not, I mean, you could not have just come up to me and been like, you're arrogant and prideful. That would have
Mhm.
never worked well. However, anybody listening to this podcast is listening to voluntarily. They've
Yes.
decided to come here and listen. And I don't know who's listening. So I'm not
Mm-mm.
looking at anybody's face or
Mm-mm.
picturing anybody's name. My heart is for people who are living in the non freedom that comes from needing to be right.
Yep.
There is bondage. It's straight up bondage. And it's just buying enemy or lies from the enemy left and right,
Mm-hmm.
believing we need to be right. There is so much freedom in being able to say, I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
Right.
In
Right.
fact, if in parenting, like I can't
Mhm.
believe, I'm so thankful how much God has changed me in this area, because my teenager will say to me, well, is there a chance you could be wrong? My reaction is, yeah, there's a chance I could be
Mhm.
wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't say that to him, I mean, that would just, no, absolutely. There's no way I'm wrong, and like, it's like, we just escalate everything, but it,
Mhm.
it does de-escalate things when one person can say, yep, there's absolutely a chance I am wrong in
Yeah.
this.
Exactly. And
And the parent,
it creates a respect for the child for you. Like when we
right,
can be owned that we might not be right all the time,
right.
and it just brings down defenses. It brings down everything that's happening that might be ugly. It just all kind of goes away. And
In all relationships, not just in
exactly.
parenting,
Mhm.
because I'm like, Melissa, how is it different to be in a, you and me are trying to figure something out and hear
Mhm.
me say, I don't know, I could be wrong. How
Yeah.
different is that versus like, no, I'm sure I'm right in this.
Yeah. So when we were in that period of our life where she was always right, I'm doing air quotes, like
If
when
you're
she
not on
insisted she
YouTube.
was right. Yes. It was exhausting because
Yeah.
I would feel it coming and I'd be like, okay, here we go. Like I
Right.
either have to, if it was something that one of us needed, like we needed to have a right or wrong answer to, and if I knew whether I knew I was right or wrong, if I knew she wasn't right, it was just like I had to like kind of prepare for a bit of a battle, and it
Yeah.
was very exhausting. And it always, I felt like I was arguing about things that I don't even actually want to argue about. But I also, if I just walk away every time, then what am I saying in our relationship? Like, oh, you always
Right.
are the winner. Like then I felt like a doormat. So it was exhausting. Whereas now there, I mean, I literally, it's like one of us, we ask the question, could there be any way you're not right? Yep. That's a very good option that I might not be right. We laugh, we move on. And if we have to find the answer, we find it. If we don't, we just move on to the next thing. And it's like, takes no effort. It's like, I can't, like, I just spent, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas time, I spent almost 2 weeks total with you
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my home. And I don't think we had one single incident where
No,
it
I don't think
became
so.
anything. Whereas years ago, although we loved being together, it
Right.
was exhausting because of
It
those
would have
kinds of
happened
things.
multiple
It would
times.
happen multiple times. And it just, we'll be having a really fun time. And then
Right.
suddenly I'm like, and this is not fun anymore. And it kind of comes
Right.
out of nowhere.
Right.
So yeah,
So,
it's like night and day.
yeah. So if you're someone who needs to be right, what I'm telling you is there is freedom. If you fight through this and you decide, I don't want to live this way anymore, you will be a happier person.
You will.
What Melissa's telling you is
Mm-hmm.
everyone around you will be a
We'll be
happier person.
happier.
All of your
Mm-hmm.
relationships will be healthier and happier.
Mm-hmm.
So if that need to be right comes up, I've got some tools,
Mm-hmm.
like CJ said last week, we got to use the tools we have. I've got some
Mm-hmm.
tools for you to write them
Pick them up.
down, like put them in your bag,
Mm-hmm.
use them. We've got verses. I'm going to talk about some verses. Um, I did say, what did I say? I was going to tell you how to deal with somebody who's, oh, well, this is what I do when I'm dealing with somebody who just needs to be right all the time. I don't know if it's right, but this has worked for me specifically with one of my children is I'm like, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like,
Yep.
well, what? And I'm like, okay. I
Yeah.
don't say they're right. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
And for a person who needs to be right, that is not victory.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, no, because no, you need to like fight me. There's a need to be like fought back or whatever. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like with one of my kids who always needs to be right, I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's what you need.
I
And
love the patronizing undertone to that.
yes, that's intentional.
I know. I love it.
Like, okay, you win. I'm not going to fight you on this. I'm not saying
Yeah.
you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm
Yep.
literally just saying,
You're
okay,
just choosing not to engage because that's what is
exactly.
happening is they're trying to engage you in something. It's like when someone wants to argue with you and you're like, because that's what I do
Mm-hmm.
I have children who like to argue, and
Mm-hmm.
I will kind of similar reaction like, okay, and I just stop engaging, and then they're like, well, why aren't you still talking to
Yeah.
me? Yeah.
Well, and I have an adult in my life who I love dearly, but needs to be right all the time. And when I say it, I don't say it as patronizing. I'm just like, okay. And it's very clear the conversation is done. And then the person sometimes gets like this wide eyed, like they can see that maybe I'm not appreciating how the conversation's going. And then they'll kind of backtrack a little bit, like,
Mm-hmm.
well, no, I'm just saying this. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
do the
Right.
first step.
Right.
And so it's not like for me, I mean, maybe it sounds manipulative, but it's for me, it's a way of, like you said, saying, okay,
Shutting it
I'm not
down.
engaging. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with where we're at. basically we're agreeing to disagree, but I'm using one word to say it.
Yeah.
So as a person who's been really difficult, I know that that would have been hard for me to have people do that to me, but I also know it would have been something that would have helped me maybe pay a little bit more attention. Like, why is everyone doing that to me?
Yeah.
Why am I getting this from like people all around me?
Well, the thing is that anytime we are dealing with somebody who is difficult, there's not a, because you said, I don't know if this is okay, but this is how I deal with it and it has worked. That's the hard part, is we're put in a position where we have to figure out how to respond and react.
Trial and error.
And yeah, in a way that is, I mean, we're not always going to get it right. And
Right.
and that's part of the other reason we want to stop being difficult, is that we're putting the other people in our life in a position where they might have to be difficult in order to deal with us. And yeah, it's like we're not only are we tripping over the stones ourselves, we're throwing rocks out there for other people to trip over, and it's just we're all in our face. So if you look in our backyard and I have people laying all over the ground, somebody in my life is difficult.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I don't know if everyone else thinks that's as funny as I do, but
I always have visuals when I think of things, and that's the visual that comes to my head.
I loved it. I loved it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you're a person who always needs to be right, a couple of verses that I think you should start reciting to yourself regularly. There's lots of them, but I'm just going to say a couple. Galatians 6:9, let us not grow weary of doing good. For in due season, we will reap if we do not give up. So arguing and needing to be right all the time is not doing good. It's not doing good to relationships. It's not doing good to yourself. It's allowing pride to grow, arrogance to grow more in our lives. So we need to not be weary of pursuing the good, doing the good, doing the right things. And in due season, we will reap the rewards if we don't give up. And I am living, walking proof of that. And mine and Melissa's relationship is living, walking proof of that.
It's true. Well, and one of the rewards that you're going to reap is in the relationships, is I as you were talking about, don't get tired of doing good. Is that when somebody always has to be right, eventually, like if Rachel was still in the place where she was all those years ago, where she had to be right, she would not be someone I go to on the regular basis to talk to about things. She would not be someone I would even maybe want to spend a lot of time with, just because it was exhausting. And eventually I would have just spent too much. Like as I got older and maybe I was maturing, or as I just didn't have the energy anymore, or whatever, just too much time of the same old thing. You're gonna lose relationships. Whereas the opposite, if you push in at doing right, as Rachel said, the reward is going to be, you're going to have healing and mending in those relationships. And I have like this group of people that I go to on the regular, and Rachel is always the first or the second that I go to. I mean, she's just right there. Like
she means the first, always the first.
I mean the first.
I'm just kidding. I'm not offended.
And but I mean, that is, she had to like kind of earn that place back in my life by putting down the need to be right all the time and not being difficult. So
I had to learn to die to myself. And that means letting my flesh die in this way, in this need. And so another verse I want to talk about is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. Okay. So the pattern of this world is I need to be right. Could we talk about masks? Could we talk about vaccines? Could we talk about politics? Melissa and I do not land on the same place in a lot of areas. The ones I just included or listed included. In fact, I think sometime we should do a podcast specifically on being people who vote differently and, anyway, but never once did I feel that my sister needed to be right in any of those areas. And I don't think she felt that I needed to be right in any of those areas.
No. In fact, so much so I forget sometimes that we're not on the same page, because it has not been an issue in our relationship.
And it's not that we don't talk about it. We're not like, well, just turn a blind eye. It's like, no, we can talk about these things.
But it doesn't define any part of who we are.
And we're both seeking Jesus. So it's like wherever we land, that's where we felt God has landed us. And so we should not conform to the pattern of this world. The pattern of this world is arguing and being rude and name calling and needing to be right. So we are not to conform to that. But then we also need to let God transform us by renewing our minds.
Yes.
And so if you spend a lot of time in your mind, if I spend a lot of time in my mind being right, that needs to be transformed. Like we just can't be right all of the time. I mean, there is a time and a season for everything, and being right is not in every season.
And how amazing would it be if you were the one person in the whole world God created to be right all the time? I guess we should meet. I want your
Right.
autograph.
There's like a Guinness Book of World Record thing for
Mhm,
you there. But so, like, wherever we're at in our mind, if we think we're right all the time, ask God, transform me, renew my. And so, like,
mhm,
if you're in a conflict specifically, renew my mind, Lord, transform my mind. I
mhm,
don't know what's right here. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're in conflict
mhm,
and we feel like we're going crazy and we don't know what's true. Ask God, He
mhm,
will tell us. Also, another tool I use regularly is ask a couple people you really trust. Where could I be wrong here?
mhm,
How often, Melissa, do we go to one another and say, okay, I'm having this issue with fill in the
mhm,
blank, this
mhm,
person. I'm going to tell you the story. I don't want you to take up my defense. I don't
mhm.
want you to tell me I'm right. I want you to tell me what I could be doing better
Yep.
or where I'm wrong or a blind spot I can't see. Like we
Yep.
do that
All
pretty
the
often.
time.
Yeah.
Like weekly, I would say. Both of us just did it within the last like day or two.
Yeah.
You needed to do it with me, and you had to come to me, and I had to come to you because I had someone say something that I really was certain was not true about my character, but I was like, I can't assume if they're saying it, I can't
Right.
assume for sure. And so I went to three people. Rachel obviously is one of them that know me very well and know me in that kind of circumstance that they were talking about to say, look, if I'm wrong in this, I need to know because
Right.
I need to fix it now.
Right.
And yeah, because we can't trust our own perspective of ourselves, both good
No.
and bad.
The
Like,
heart, the Bible says the heart deceives itself. Like
mhm,
we can't trust ourselves. And so
mhm,
my first reaction is not always truth. My second
correct.
reaction is not always truth. My third
Mhm,
reaction is not always truth. And so if I go to Melissa and I go, listen, I'm really mad at this person and I'm
mhm,
really struggling. I need you to hear out the situation and then show me where I could do better.
mhm,
Inevitably, she will find something that, okay, well, you could work on this or you could draw from that or whatever.
mhm.
And it's like,
Or if I really am like, I don't think that you're the issue, I can honestly say that because she knows
yes,
that I don't take up her defense and I'm not going
right,
to just always defend her because I know that her desire is to hear the truth of
right.
the situation. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So those are a couple of tools I have is having some verses on hand that you can recite. Even if you don't like know them off the top of your head, you can Google, what does the Bible
Mhm,
say about this? Find a
mhm.
couple verses, meditate on them. When you're really frustrated at someone, be very slow to respond until
Yes.
you can trust yourself and you found a lot of freedom in this area. And I can personally speak from experience, be very slow to respond.
100%. I actually have had to practice that this week on repeat because I've had several really hard, painful situations happen in different, like over a period of a week and a half that have
Mhm.
hurt me immensely. And my three of my best friends, Rachel included, all have come back to me out of love and shared some things that they were just trying to encourage me. And I felt defensive immediately because I was not because they said anything wrong, but because my heart was so hurt that I wasn't ready to have any critical commentary or whatever. Like, even if it was out of love, I just needed to be sad for a little bit and let my heart heal a little then. And I told each of them, I said, you are not doing anything wrong, but I need to walk away from the conversation because I'm reacting inappropriately or
Yeah.
unnecessary out of my sadness, not because
Right.
of anything you're saying. And so if we continue, I'm going to react in ways I don't want. And all
Right.
three of them were like, oh my gosh, of course, I'm sorry. They didn't have to say sorry, but they were all, also like, thank you for just being honest and
Yeah.
moving along and pausing before
Mhm.
you really getting, because, a week or two from now, I'll totally be able to have those same conversations and
Right.
they'll be great. But
Right.
this week, I couldn't do it. And
Just too raw. Yeah.
mhm,
Being honest
mhm,
with people. Yeah. Like, so that's a huge one. Saying to somebody when you're in conflict, I don't want to say something that is going to hurt you or that I'm going to regret. So
mhm,
maybe I need to take a pause.
mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with pausing in
No.
a conflict or taking some space. And if you're with somebody who won't do that, just be
Mhm.
like, if you respect me, you'll give me the space because
Yeah.
I respect our relationship enough to not be reacting poorly.
Yep. Yep,
Um,
exactly. Mhm.
well, and we talked about that with the one about when we're just weird, just being honest with people about where
Yeah.
we're at. Like, you know what? I'm
Mhm.
not having a great day. I don't trust my reactions.
Mhm.
I don't think we should have this conversation today. It's not
Yeah,
you, it's me.
100%.
It's like,
Yeah.
because like when you, let's just say today, you're like, yeah, wow, I am a really difficult person and I do always need to be right. And 1 year from now, you will have, if you've made some, you will have made some progress if you've like taken the steps today,
Mhm.
but you'll still just be 1 year out. And let's say you're 40 and you've spent 39 years or 40
Yeah.
years needing to be right. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And so being honest with people in the process is huge. It's
Mhm.
like, I don't trust my reactions right now. I don't trust myself with this topic,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
which is a way of not having to be right all the time because
yeah.
if, if that's a way of laying that down. Something I want to say that I thought of when Rachel was talking about that, the verse in Romans about do not conform to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is my life verse, by the way. It has literally been the verse I've gone back to over
Mhm.
and over and over and over to throughout 3 decades basically, and ask God to use it in so many situations, and it is a life-changing verse. But one thing I want to say is that if you need to be right all the time, there is a reason behind that. I am a huge advocate for finding the root of why
Mhm.
we do something, because if you acknowledge, yeah, I do have to be right all the time, and you just really try to stop, chances are you're going to struggle more to remove that from your life if you don't figure out where is this need to be right coming from.
Yeah.
So it could be insecurity, like I'm embarrassed to ever be wrong, so then I have to always be right. It could be that you grew up in a home where you were always told you're wrong, so now your defense mechanism as an adult is to always have to be right. It could be
Or you
as
grew up in a
simple.
home where you were told we're always right and everyone else is always wrong.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Like our family, we know everything, and those
Mhm.
families, they're just dumb. Maybe it's as simple as you just have a lot of pride, which
Mhm.
obviously is a big thing. But I just really, really, really want to encourage you. Step one, if this is something that rings true, admit it and be okay with it, and be okay with admitting it. I mean,
I
and
would
step two,
even go a step further and admit it to someone that you trust.
100%, because now you have accountability.
Mhm.
And what one of my favorite things is saying things out loud, especially to people
Mhm.
we trust, because it removes the enemy's hold on it. It's like
Mhm.
bringing it to the light, bringing it out loud, putting it
Mhm.
out there, not just in our heads, especially because our minds can deceive us so much,
Right.
is it like literally just reduces the enemy's hold on us. And so, but then also going, figuring out, okay, where did this need to be right all the time come from? So,
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And the last two verses I want to share, they go together. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and First Chronicles 16:11. So Proverbs says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
mhm,
I love, well, that's verse 5. 6 is in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. But lean on the Lord. Don't lean on your own understanding. When I'm in my own mind, telling my own mind what I know and what I don't know, and like there's not a lot of Jesus in the equation, that's a red flag for me. Like, where is the prayer in this? Like, where am I asking God to right my heart? Where am I asking God to make things right? Like, make
mhm,
things true? Like, do I want to
mhm.
be right or do I want to be righted before God? And then the First Chronicles 16:11, seek the
I
Lord
like
in his
that.
strength, seek his presence continually. And basically, if we're seeking God,
Right.
he's going to make it clear. If we're seeking
Yep.
our own self and our own understanding, and if we go to people who are like minded and they're going to complain about the person we're in conflict with, and they're not going to point us towards any truth, we're
Mhm,
not seeking the Lord. And
mhm,
so if we keep our mind focused on him and like, okay, what's your truth say? What does your Bible say? Are you going to, can you fix something in me? Can you renew my mind, my heart? Inevitably, we will start growing and we will
mhm,
start finding the freedom, the ability to say, how could I be wrong in this situation?
mhm.
Or it's very possible I am wrong.
Yeah.
This is what I think, but it's very possible I'm wrong.
Mhm. Exactly. Well, and also take a look at all the things that you're trying to be right in. A lot of them are either pointless, like the bow on my dress. Like, why did Rachel need to be right about that? I do not
Yes,
know.
indeed.
Like, that was such a strange thing to like plant her flag on.
It's very strange. I agree.
Or it's going to be it's going to be a lot of times it's really huge issues that you're not going to change someone's mind
Right.
just because you are relentless. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there, especially nowadays, like social media, man, that's a really good place to practice not having to be right all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because I promise you, putting out what you think is right is not going to change anyone's mind. You're just going to get all the
Right.
people who agree with you following, and all the people who disagree hating, and it does no
Mm-hmm.
good. Like, um so yeah, I think we
Yeah,
could
it's
eliminate
true.
a lot just by removing those things.
So, and then my very last tool I want to say is practice listening, not to respond. If you're someone who needs
Yes.
to be right, you're listening to respond. You're listening to form your rebuttal. And I still, I mean, even though I'm very, very, very different in this way, I still listen to respond. It's like so natural for me.
Yeah.
And so I use social media as an opportunity to listen and respond. I'd like to hear more about that. Or what did you think about that? Or what makes you feel that way? Or, and honestly, like when you are in conflict with somebody, validating the other person is like the easiest thing to do. I can
Yeah.
understand how you would feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even
Yep.
saying you're right. I'm just saying I
No.
can understand how you would
Mm-hmm.
feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, those are two very simple things to start practicing today.
Well, and that's why you and I can line up very differently. CJ, you guys met her last week. Her and I also don't line up on a lot of things, but we line up on Jesus and we line up
Mhm.
on respecting and loving each other.
Mhm.
And we are, me and Rachel and CJ and I often are saying things like, "Oh, I can see why that's where you landed. I'm still not
Mhm.
there. That's not where I
Mhm.
land, but I can see that, like, because I really can." And
Right.
again, it's not saying one is right or wrong. It's just
Right.
understanding.
So we've talked about a lot of things today. Can you
Yeah.
think of one thing that would be like a takeaway challenge this week?
Well, I think what I said earlier, like, be willing to admit that maybe you have to be right all the time and then share it with someone and then spend some time asking God to help you understand where that need comes from,
Mhm.
that you can start being released from it.
Okay. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Well,
All
we'd
right.
love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, where can they connect with us?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you guys through our Instagram, our Facebook, a mess nonetheless.com, or our email, a mess nonetheless at gmail.com. We truly,
Yes,
truly do love to hear from you
we
guys.
do.
We love when you share what you're learning on our podcast. We love when you review us. Reviews
Hmm.
help other people see us
Yeah.
that haven't connected through us through social media. So it's a way to
Hmm.
get our podcast out there so that if you feel encouraged or challenged or both through our
If you're a
podcast,
little bit mad at us, that's okay.
it's okay. We still love you. So, anyways, we'd love if you guys reviewed us and shared us. So, you guys have a great week.
Bye.